second show of the Minds Panel Show. I'm your host, Satorid D, and I'm here today with my Minds Panel crew. I got leetraivs. Hey, what's up, Lee? How's it going?
How you doing, guys? This is Lee. My channel's out, leetraivs, and I'm a cryptocurrency fan.
And then we also got Teklordz in the house. Hey, what's up, Teklordz?
Hey, everything's fine here. Hope you guys are doing okay.
We're doing good. We're kind of losing our first guest. He's going in and out. Cryptocurrency. Rocky, are you there?
I'm here. I'm back. I keep on getting kicked out for some reason from Google Hangouts. I haven't had a lot of success with that platform, but I am back.
Okay.
How's it going?
We're doing good. You want to kind of briefly introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time cryptocurrency trader and investor, as well as a marketer, and I help run a trading education school on skillincubator.com, and we have about 500 cryptocurrency traders that are in our school, and I also just recently launched a site called Cryptohustle.
Cryptohustle, nice. Okay, we also have the Synereo team here. We got 3 people from Synereo. Christian, can you introduce your team here?
Yep, we are all from the Synereo project. My name is Christian. I've been more or less with the project for a year now. We also have Evan and Jim. You guys can go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Evan. I've been with the Synereo project as a community leader for a couple months now. It's pretty cool stuff.
Jim Scarver here. I've been with Synereo since the beginning. The Synereo project has a lot of overlapping with Minds in terms of providing a social networking environment.
Yeah, they seem very, very compatible, and we're kind of like doing the basic same thing. But Christian, you want to briefly explain for people that don't know what Synereo is and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, sure. The biggest thing that we will probably be marketing in the future is a social network.
Okay.
And this social network is it's going to be a smart contracting platform. You're going to have a cryptocurrency built into the stack. It's designed so there's no backdoors, so your privacy is, no one can look at your data. Yeah. That definitely opens a whole nother can of worms for the security and privacy geeks. Decentralized, distributed. I don't want to say it's the holy grail of social networking, but we'll see what the devs come up with in the next, hopefully, few months. We'll have a beta launch.
Okay, that sounds exciting. Yeah, I was researching, guys. You guys are doing interesting stuff over there. Okay, so real quick, I want to go back to Rocky, and let's get into the basics of Bitcoin and why is Bitcoin so liberating?
Well, it's liberating because unlike having IOUs in a fractional reserve credit system, you actually control your own wealth through managing your own private keys on a public open source blockchain. So that's it's a permissionless monetary system and one of the first in history.
Yeah. And, it's really interesting. So like, we're going to go over, as I was reading on your site, you have the 5 reasons why cryptocurrency is liberating. So we're like cutting out the middleman, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the traditional, there's a lot of friction in the traditional banking system. You've got daily spending limits. You have these delays. You've got all of these arbitrary fees placed on you. Your assets can be levied or seized. You're pretty much at the whim of these financial institutions, and it's been like that for quite some time. And fractional reserve banking actually is a very similar model to a Ponzi scheme. It's actually a Ponzi scheme. Essentially, you pay old investors dividends from new investors, and whereas with fractional reserve banking, you're actually paying off the interest on old debt with the creation of new debt. So they both have the exact same effect of creating more debt because it's impossible to pay off the principal sum.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add to what their experience with Bitcoin or anything like that? Leetraivs, you want to?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Okay. Yeah, I've got probably 5 years worth of experience with Bitcoin. I started Durango Bitcoin about 5 years ago when it first came out. I was writing a manifesto called Wiki Being then, and that's how I discovered the Bitcoin client. And I was looking at the way it was, its ability not as a currency, but back then as its ability to distribute data, and make it safe inside of a. And I didn't know how it worked exactly, but I discovered it because I was researching that kind of stuff back then. So, and I've lost money, quite a bit of money, and I've gained probably as much money as I've lost back. So I'm kind of at right at an even scale.
Okay. And with Synereo too, what I was researching, you guys got that app.
So the amp is sort of redeemable to amplify the reach that content has.
Okay.
That's one way. It ties into the attention economy, but it's one way that you can pay for distribution of content based on what the person wants to be engaged with.
Uh-huh.
You can also push out stuff that you want other people to engage with by spending it. It's redeemable for promotion on the social network.
Okay. Sounds good. Kind of like our points system and mines. We got Cryptohustle back again, right?
Yeah, I'm back. I just plugged into my modem, so hopefully that
It works. Yeah, it's cool. Okay, so now let's kind of go into, for especially those people that really don't know about Bitcoin. You have some helpful tips on your website. The 12 steps to keep your Bitcoin safe.
Yeah, so the most important thing with Bitcoin is it gives you freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. And so you have to actually maintain and secure your private keys, because if they get hacked, it's irreversible, and there won't be much you can do about it. So that's the trade-off. And so some of the things that you need to do is, well, the easiest way is to actually just get yourself a hardware wallet, really. But there are other attack vectors, such as viruses that can change the Bitcoin address on you when you try to copy and paste it and things like that. So you always want to double check the wallet that you're sending to. You want to make sure your operating system is secure. I mean, I know Teklordz is a big fan of Linux, as am I. So it tends to be a much more secure operating system than Windows. If you are going to use Windows, then it's probably better to have it as a dedicated computer for your crypto stuff. I do a lot of trading, so I'm constantly kind of shifting coins back and forth between different exchanges and wallets and such. So I use Linux, and I really got into Linux since I got into Bitcoin, and I've never really had a problem with any of the security because of it. So
Teklordz, you want to touch on that a little bit more about?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Linux is the OS of choice for any Bitcoin trader, especially traders. You can't really imagine a trader trading on Windows. It's not compatible.
Yeah.
Windows is like Swiss cheese. It's like full of holes. So if anybody you should have a dedicated computer if you want to trade Bitcoin. If you want to keep Windows, but you should have a dedicated laptop just for trading Bitcoins, because it's very important security-wise. So it's much more secure than any other OS out there.
Yeah, definitely.
I missed that. What OS are you guys talking about?
Linux.
Linux. Okay. What distribution is the favorite?
Well, it depends on your level of expertise. For beginners, Linux Mint is really good. You have other, like, I don't really like Ubuntu because of their Unity desktop, but there's other like Linux Mat or Mate or Mate. It depends on how people pronounce it. That's a very good option as well. If you're more advanced, you could go to Arch Linux. So it all depends. But Linux Mint is really a good operating system. maybe not the Cinnamon desktop, but if you go to an XFCE, you could have a Windows XP style operating system, but much more secure, of course. So I highly recommend Linux Mint
The next man.
17.3 Rosa.
Okay,
So yeah,
that's
I had
good.
to make desktop, of course.
Okay, Crypto Hustle,
Thanks.
can you go a little bit more in depth about the hardware wallet?
Yeah, so the one that I use is called a Trezor. It's I haven't really tested a lot of the other ones out. Trezor's pretty good. It protects against multiple types of attacks. Even the $5 wrench attack, which I find kind of hilarious, whereas someone tries to extort you and hit you over the head with a $5 wrench, you could have multiple different passwords and accounts with different coins on them. So that's kind of cool. The idea is you isolate your private keys from the internet.
Yes.
So it kind of isolates your keys in cold storage, but it gives you the convenience of using a hot wallet, which is essentially just kind of like a web wallet. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and probably to boost user adoption, that would be the best option, because most people really don't want to be bothered with having to figure out how to secure their keys and keep their computer safe. So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important for the average person to kind of like get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. A lot of people don't want to they use the same password for everything because they want to remember it and all this kind of stuff. So the more kind of tools we could give them to kind of adopt it and make it user friendly, I think it's important. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll move into the 5 phases of Bitcoin. We're talking about having people kind of adopt it. I was reading, and you had the experimental, where everybody's kind of testing it out. The early adopters. You want to touch on that subject?
Yeah, so in 2014, Barry Silbert, he was interviewed. He's the founder of the Digital Currency Group and the Bitcoin Investment Trust. He was interviewed by Forbes, and he laid out the 5 phases of Bitcoin adoption, which is experimental, early adopter, venture capital, Wall Street, and then the consumer adoption. And I believe last year we'd entered into the Wall Street adoption when you had New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and all these major Wall Street firms getting involved and getting skin in the game. We're not quite at the consumer adoption phase yet, but I mean, all the infrastructure is there to make it happen. I mean, even here in Canada, you could purchase Bitcoins, I mean, at a premium, but you could still purchase Bitcoins across 6,000 stores here just with a voucher. So I see more and more that things are becoming streamlined. It was just a few years ago where you had to send a bank wire to Mt. Gox, some shady exchange out in Japan, just to be able to get your.
I was going to add to that, but I forgot what I was going to say.
About the kind of early adoption and it being more available.
Oh yeah, but just now that it's what it is, it's still it's sort of hard for unless you're in a city to get the coins. I'm noticing bank accounts are more starting to make you sign if you're going to use it as you can't use your account as a cryptocurrency. In Colorado, you can't use it for cryptocurrency or marijuana businesses, and there's another one too for anti-fraud. So.
Okay.
Gambling, online gambling is the other.
People are scared about the association between Bitcoin and crime, which is quaint.
Yeah. And define crime,
That's cash. It's that's stupid. Okay.
I would say too that I don't necessarily agree that it's even getting closer to mass adoption, because proof of work is such a problem. It's just not. I mean, unless someone has an update on how Bitcoin's going to scale, I don't see it going much further now unless there's a massive breakthrough with respect to how transactions are cleared.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I mean, there's that raging debate about Lightning Network and all that kind of stuff, and the block size debate that's been going on. I mean, I'm kind of I've been kind of neutral on the debate. I do feel that the blockchain obviously needs to scale, And I like the concept and the idea of Lightning Network and how it could potentially scale millions of transactions a second. But I also understand the concerns that, you know, if you have these central payment hubs, that these could be a potential centralized solution, or it could be co-opted. Maybe maybe they would want to require KYC compliance or whatever just to use the blockchain, right? But that said, the founders right now, they're all you know, a lot of them are cypherpunks, and they do have a tradition of wanting to ensure freedom and privacy. So I'm not so sure they're as ill intent as some people would say they are, but we'll see. I'm currently optimistic about it, but you're right. I mean, Bitcoin definitely does need to scale in order to hit consumer adoption. Otherwise, and it needs to do it soon. Otherwise,
Right.
it won't be able to handle that.
Well, even Ethereum's having a problem with scaling. But can you? That would be really interesting if you could maybe just give a 1 or 2 sentence summary on how the Lightning Network works. I didn't even hear about that yet.
Teklordz, do you know? I think we lost.
Yeah. Well, he'll be back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Next time he's gonna come to my house.
Do you have anything about? Oh,
It's really quite an old problem that we're grappling with. About centralization is really efficient. If you want to do things really fast, centralization is really good. But if you want to do things that are fair and that don't rely on some central authority not being evil, then there's obvious efficiency costs to do that.
yeah.
I'm back. The best way I've heard Lightning Network described is running a bar tab. You know, instead of paying for each drink individually, you run a tab with a payment hub, and it's a multi-signature transaction where you essentially lock coins on the blockchain. Now, in some ways, it could decentralize services like Coinbase, which is a custodial service that holds everyone's private keys. If you could take those same services and put them on chain or lock them onto the blockchain, then people wouldn't have to relinquish their private keys. I could see a potential to even decentralize exchanges and things like that. So in some ways, it could decentralize some of the services that we're already using, because I'd say the majority of people probably use things like Coinbase or, you know, BitPay and these services like that, at least the majority or the mainstream. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know it was that complicated, because that's not even the miners. Now you have actual exchanges that might not want to be decentralized, dude. That's so intense. That just added a whole nother level of
Yeah.
And then side chains might come out soon, and then Rootstock, which would be an Ethereum side chain, basically taking all of Ethereum's features and linking it to Bitcoin as a side chain.
Crypto, I have a question for you.
What's that?
Listen, what's your take on the banks adopting the blockchain technology, but at the same time banning Bitcoin, like in Russia? The central bank announced recently that they would adopt the blockchain technology. I believe they finished testing already, but the government is threatening jail time 7 years for even providing bitcoins or stuff like that. So can you expand on that?
I think it's the perfect definition of cognitive dissonance. You know, I mean, Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system without the use of financial institutions, right? So I don't mind that they want to have private blockchains, because they're.
I think we lost him again.
Just to expand on that point too.
Yeah.
I know that the Russians, I read a while back that they were having an emergency meeting on cryptocurrency because it is starting to get a much bigger problem. So
American banks are sort of experimenting with building their own as well.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, go on.
Sounds like a typical narrative, you know, of oh, you know, we like it, we like this, you know, peer-to-peer network or whatever, but we don't want any of the decentralization involved. And, you know, if they wanted to have their private bank chains and you know, not trash talk Bitcoin or the roots of this technology that they're looking at, I'd be all for that. But, you know, when it's, you know, the definition of cognitive dissonance is when you're doing something but you hold a contradictory belief that's linked to what you're doing with the habits that you're engaged in. So I think they should at least give a little more respect to it. And some of them do. I mean, they're not all trying to trash talk or co-opt Bitcoin, but the thing that's happening in Russia right now is just insane. I mean, I don't know what's going on down there.
The dissonance by these corporations, I think it's this very cynical strategy of Well, this technology has the potential to lower our operating costs enormously, but it also has the potential to put us out of business if we do. And so the strategy that they're choosing to adopt is probably for their interests pretty smart. We're going to going to paint it in the public eye being this criminal conspiracy, this evil thing. But at the same time, we're going to build our own, and then we're going to say that we're doing this so that we can protect people from the evils of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and the
Makes
evils
sense.
are them.
Business as usual.
Yeah, that double speak that they always have. Yep.
I mean, it makes complete sense. Why wouldn't the CIA have their own blockchain, private blockchain, so that now that it's you'll never see in the news again. Oh, the CIA is laundering money. Well, there's no paper trail, bro. That's crypto. So
Yeah.
these these governments will have their own currencies. It's only a matter of time.
Well, I think the main problem is just tech illiteracy among policymakers. Like we've seen with the way that the FBI and Congress are handling encryption, they just don't have a fucking clue. They don't know what it is, they don't know how it works, and it scares them.
Yeah, they're totally clueless about all this stuff. Anybody else wants to really briefly say something about cryptocurrency, blockchain, maybe?
I'd like to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe, according to my research, I believe the Bank of England was the first bank to try and test a centralized blockchain. I remember reading that last year somewhere. I don't know if it's in Forbes or I can't remember where I read that, but I believe they're the first ones who tried it, and it spread like wildfire across all the banks, even the central banks. And it's I even heard that the Federal Reserve was studying very closely. Federal Reserve in New York City. I think they already adopted a blockchain, a centralized blockchain. Yeah, they want to use the technology, but they want to keep their fees, which is I'd like to ask Cryptohustle about the fees. That's an important subject we need to talk about because banks charge like between like I don't know 25 to $50 for a wire transfer, and you transfer Bitcoin is like 20 cents. So crypto, can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean it's just I mean I wouldn't say it's cheaper to run the network because all the mining is expensive, but they're subsidized through the creation of new Bitcoins, so that has a hidden cost to it of a type of an inflation, but that keeps our fees low. But obviously with the halving coming up, that's getting reduced to 4.5%. But yeah, with banks, I mean they're obviously in the business of making money, and if they'll charge as many fees as they possibly can, really. I mean, it used to be where they'd actually try to pay you and give you gifts to hold your money. Now you have to pay them, and now that we have things like negative interest rates and things like that, you have to pay money to purchase bonds.
Okay.
It's
So-
just a question of
And there's also the danger of bail-ins. It's a new trend that started because of those negative interest rates. It was experimented in Cyprus, and then in Greece, and now it might go worldwide. And if you have your money invested in something else than banks, like Bitcoin, and you have that on your cold wallet, your Trezor wallet, or whatever, there's no way they can, go in and take your coins. They can't. So that's another advantage.
It's an interesting. Like you talked about Bitcoin as getting rid of financial institutions, and in the sense of the existing regime, that's correct. But there's at the same time a potential that you just get different and new types of quote unquote financial institutions. Like the function of a bank is to basically hold your money, keep it safe, and then also handle investments so they can take interest and incentive for them to hold your money. Now, the Trezor wallet is sort of a decentralized bank where everybody is holding their own account in their pocket, basically. So it creates this institution of this demand for this consumer good of the Trezor wallet, which is a device. instead of a financial service like a savings account.
Maybe so, but I'd like to interject here and say that when you deposit money in a bank, the money's not yours anymore. It belongs to the bank. So that's one thing people don't realize. When you deposit money, when your paycheck goes directly in your bank account, that money belongs to the bank, doesn't belong to you. So that's, food for thought here.
Another thing too is, when we talk strictly about cryptocurrency, hopefully soon, especially with Ethereum's blockchain, you'll have fully programmable currency. So, when you're running your solar panel and you want to sell, electricity to your neighbor, you know what I mean? It makes everyone a producer too.
But to be honest, I think that there's going to be a coin for absolutely everything on Earth, and everything that is considered a resource, or I mean, even plants, like you said, bananas, people, animals, and every kind of institution.
The worst would be DNA or genome.
The point, I think, the greater point of the blockchain isn't necessarily to address currency. Currency is sort of like an issue that is of the mind, and it has nothing to do with reality. It's a medium of how we how we have exchange with one another. And I think that the idea behind the blockchain is really just starting to be grasped, and what that is it's trust, because absolutely every interaction with another human being, or a human being with a resource that comes from the earth, is sort of a contract, and that's the whole concept. The blockchain technology is going to be the end of money and how we perceive money, and to try to apply our concept of money as how we understand it now to this concept of contracts that are trustworthy, that everyone can count on because they can see a public ledger. And it's really an issue of trust, because that's what money is. It's trust. It's a contract of trust. It says, I'm going to give you my bananas for this money, for these dollars, and then you take those dollars and you trust those dollars are going to be spendable somewhere for something you need. But it's collapsing. The whole system that we live in is collapsing out from underneath our feet, and we don't understand why, because the reason is, I mean, we're starting to understand that there's bankers and there's this centralized organizations that are controlling the money and printing it out of control. But the whole point is that we can't trust that money because it's not rooted in something that's trustworthy to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that's happening right now, is that trust with paper money, the fiat system, and the central banking is really nosediving. But I want to touch on that point that you were saying about the blockchain technology, and what it's doing is creating that trust, but through transparency. And this is kind of what I think too we need to do a better job of communicating to the average person or whatever, is really simply saying that it's about transparency and this public ledger. So every transaction is out there in the open for everybody kind of to see.
Well,
and so there's no like...
It can be transparency, but it can also be completely and absolutely anonymous. But what really solidifies the whole deal is the encryption behind it. That's what you can trust. That's what you know. When you're dealing with numbers, 10 to the power of 60. That's when you know that no one can count that high. No one has a supercomputer that can count that high, and so I can trust that I can almost guarantee beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is going to be the information from this particular source, or these are going to be the keys to this particular account, or whatever. And so the fact that you can program that, you can create a contract. And once we can create contracts, we have devices that can create contracts in everyday instances of any kind of situation you can imagine. Everything that we do in life is a contract. If you live with somebody, that's a social contract, and we have social contracts that aren't written down throughout our entire life. But once these contracts start solidifying in a blockchain sort of manner with encryption, to where the values that we're trading between one another are locked in sort of an escrow, then we don't really need money anymore. And so, you know, think 100 years from now, when there is no more money, U.S. dollars or papers or anything, and it's all just these credits, you know, these values transferring from one set of keys to another set of keys. You know, that right there is going to change absolutely everything when we have devices, and we're no, you know, devices will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they'll be, you know, just basically out of sight, but they're, you know, recording everything and putting it onto a blockchain, and then there will be, like you said, there will be these transparent blockchains, but there will also be private blockchains. You know, you can create your own private network and keep all your own private stuff, and then, you know, add that to the network as you see fit.
So
Anyway, that's
the big thing that you keep highlighting here is contracts. The problem with contracts is once it's signed and into the blockchain, it's irreversible. So
well, you can make it reversible. You can do whatever you want.
Because at the end of the day,
cool thing about,
go ahead.
I was going to say, the cool thing about all the dangers, like you said, you know, it does, like you said, it opens up a world of everything that it's imaginable that could happen with smart contracts, and they will. But it also creates the opportunity for innovation. So I always say that, you know, rather than make laws to prevent innovation from hurting people, let innovation solve its own problems by creating, you know, a new situation.
Okay, but let's now the historical. Let's not like disclaimer there, right? Because, you know, agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution. You know, that's World War I, right? And then World War II, the industrial to the technological, and now technological to potentially decentralization, where everything's up for grabs. So,
Right.
you know, we could, you know, boom, that's an explosion of intelligence, explosion of conflict and chaos and complexity. So it's just, as a human beings, we just
double-edged sword.
To back this up, the fundamental difference here is that the blockchain allows for, you described it as trust. I would characterize that slightly differently as saying, when you have centralized entities that have discretion, you have requirement for trust. That centralized entity must be trustworthy, or the system breaks down. What a blockchain lets you do is it lets you have a trust-free situation, which is unprecedented, and nobody knows what to do with this. Where I don't have to trust you in order to enter into a contractual relationship with you. I don't have to trust you. I could think that this person, if they could be the scum of the earth, and they will go back on every promise they ever make to me, and I can still be reasonably confident that when something goes on the blockchain, it's going to be perfectly preserved, infallible, unmessable, that it will do what it's supposed to do.
I guess I completely agree with you, and that with what you say, trust doesn't actually exist, and the only thing that is trustworthy is, like you said, you can be working with a scumbag, but still know that the money's in the escrow account.
Civilization has been trying to establish trust for thousands of years. The government is a central trusted entity. The idea of, you know, if you do something bad, you'll be punished, was created to allow people to trust one another, or at least have a higher degree of confidence that they can trust one another. This whole structure of increasingly complex, increasingly onerous burdens just to get people to work together has been created strictly so that people will trust one another.
It's so silly.
Develop a system that means that level of trust is not necessary.
That's the $1 million, $1 trillion question.
That's what we gotta collectively try to figure out and brainstorm, right? This is why everybody's having conversations just like this all around the world right now. So I guess. Oh, hey, what's up?
I switched computers. I'm trying another one.
Okay, let's shift a little bit of gears, because I think let's highlight what Synereo's doing and the whole project with the decentralized social networking. You guys wanna?
Well, Synereo, let me go ahead and share my screen. I have this chart. I think it'd be very helpful
Okay.
to share. That way, it kind of gives you an idea of.
In a few words, it's a
Yeah.
decentralized social network. So instead of having Facebook servers, you run your own node, basically.
Okay.
And you own it. It's yours. You decide what happens on it. All the information on it is yours, and so on. You don't have all of your information going to Facebook or whoever.
Yeah.
You can write custom things to do on it. You control what other nodes it connects to and in what ways and what information gets shared and so on.
That's another element to it.
That's the thing that people are going to have the hardest time with conceptually. So the attention economy consists of two sort of resources, the Rio and amps. And Rio is local, so only your own node really has to care about what that is. And the main thing there is it creates this network of where people are directing their attention. So if somebody pays a lot of attention to the content that someone else is putting on, it broadens the connection. More Rio is flowing there, and it brings them closer in the network.
Yeah.
The core value here is where Facebook would determine what shows up in, for example, your wall, although you can obviously do lots of things with this. Instead of having an algorithm that just decides, where Facebook can filter things in or out of some of people's walls, the Rio algorithm decides what somebody wants to see, what they'll engage with, and then puts that higher in their priority of things that they want to see. Imagine the Synereo network is a brain, and each node in it is a neuron. And certain neurons have really expansive, broad connections with other neurons because they pay a lot of attention and a lot of engagement there. And other neurons have more tenuous or indirect connections with other neurons because there's less flow going directly between them.
Right.
And the other thing is the AMP, which is the second resource, which is, I believe it's going to be a cryptocurrency, but currently isn't its own blockchain.
Okay.
And this allows you to spend amps to propagate something out along this network. And so people who have stronger Rio connections, it'll prioritize more, but it still prioritizes along less or more tenuous connections, right? The idea is to efficiently spread something along a network to people who want to engage with that kind of thing that you're promoting.
Yep. Hey, John.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
So yeah, the AMP essentially, as I'm saying, it's a token that essentially amplifies the information you want to get out, and then
crypto asset. So you can transfer it, you can buy it, you can potentially sell it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was researching you guys, I found a lot of your stuff really, really interesting. I like that whole feature about designing your own filters. This is something us as the Minds Panel show really does a lot. So we have two aspects of what we're doing with the Minds Panel show, and basically the whole idea behind what we're doing with the Minds Panel show is once again kind of going to this whole philosophy and ethos of working a decentralized multimedia group of people. And we have our show that we're doing like today, where we have it's more planned out, more standard podcasts, but we all through the week we have meetings, but we also turn them into shows, and they're what I'm calling pop-up shows, or they're spontaneous organic shows. And we spend a lot of time just brainstorming ideas as far as coming up with different features or filters that we want, that we would like to see with our page on Minds, or what are the implications of say like our point value system. Like, is it encouraging genuine communication, or is us valuing it? So for right now, everything's valued the same. You get the same amount of points for a like, for a comment, or for a remind, but we want to encourage more interaction and more of this, what we're phrasing as comment culture. So we're like, well, shouldn't a comment be valued more than a like? Because a like is kind of like passive, and some people kind of, if they want to farm points, they'll just like and like and like and like. And then should we have like a kind of a cap on that? But what does that do? And so this is where we really kind of get crazy with our Minds Panel show and our backroom meetings, and we turn those into shows. But I like that feature where you guys are talking about designing your own filters, and I think this is the the great thing about decentralization, but also to, there's to everything's like a cost and effect, like that. It's really hard to kind of like what you were saying earlier, Evan. I think about centralized, you kind of like speed up things, but being decentralized, you kind of like spread out that like processing power or whatever, and you have different ways you could go, and it's kind of this hard balance of trying to find this kind of like golden medium of like, okay, now we need to focus in on like this one kind of topic, or should we kind of keep on going off on this? I find that stuff really interesting. What's going on?
So
Anybody-
just to touch on the golden medium for all you spirit science guys out there, Synereo is based off a high level of mathematics called pi calculus.
Okay.
So if you really want to get into the whole how this connects back to fractals and witchcraft and
Here's what I know about
Illuminati.
It makes blockchains way faster. That's all I know.
That's really cool. Okay, so I think let's start opening it up for just these general kind of ideas, and we'll just start brainstorming or just going with the conversation. So let's kind of touch on. Anybody want to kind of talk about Ethereum or kind of more of decentralization and its possibilities and where you kind of want to see it? Maybe.
I'd like to hear Cryptohustle on this, on Ethereum. I think he's an expert in the cryptocurrency. So
I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say an expert. There are some probably some developers that are cryptographers that are much higher level than myself. But my take on Ethereum, I love Ethereum. I love the fact that you can build all these decentralized apps. I think that obviously the scaling issue comes into play. How big's their blockchain right now? Is it like
we're working with Synereo is working with Ethereum to solve scaling.
Okay.
So
Nice.
hopefully within a year they'll have Casper working. Yeah.
Nice. I think like the biggest mistake that I've seen, and I guess in the coming out of Ethereum, I don't know who started the meme, but the whole, and I know the mainstream media is on, is just kind of like a competitor, like branding it as a competitor to Bitcoin, right? I think that was probably one of its bigger mistakes because, I mean, it's not intended to be. It has a different intention, as far as I understand, of what Bitcoin is, right? And yeah, you could trade Ether like you could any other cryptocurrency or asset. But it's designed.
Well, so the thing about that's what's so interesting about Ethereum, and that's what's so interesting about the community that we have right here on this podcast, because we can you brought up they're trying to divide us. It's very clear. You know what I mean? And there's so many scammers out there. Some other exchanges trying to make money on speculation, all that. So as long as we stay unified and we say, look, everyone's got skin in the game on this. Okay, our planet is burning down. All these problems, like, can we just get over the fact that people are competitors and start cooperating?
Well, I mean, that it's not just like they're like, we want to protect people from the dangers of Bitcoin and crypto, and it's like the potential for smart contracts is to democratize lots of things that were formerly the provinces of large institutions, first of all, and secondly, it has the potential to give so much better consumer protection than ever in history because it's infallible. You don't even have to, it's not even a factor that somebody could rip someone else off once it's in the blockchain.
I kind of want to touch on that whole like divide thing, and this is kind of why it kind of happened kind of synchronistic when I was already developing the show for the cryptocurrency. That's when Christian kind of like reached out to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Then when you kind of explained just briefly what you guys were doing, and I was like, okay, so I looked into it. I was like, okay, this is kind of similar into what Minds is doing, and I personally am just curious and excited, and I don't think that as far as being decentralized, open source, that there isn't a competition between each other, that we could have a symbiotic relationship where we should work together, and this collaborative ethos kind of spreads out, and that it's not going to take just one entity to say topple over the centralized system, that it's going to take a whole collaboration of multi tools, multi-software and hardware, and that what we're doing right now and what other people that are doing out there is about just right now kind of networking with like-minded people, experimenting with these blockchain technology, because it's barely in like we're barely even grasping the possibilities of this, and we're in that experimental phase, as Cryptohustle was kind of talking about a little bit with the Bitcoin, but on the large scale of how we could possibly see this being implemented, and that we could learn a lot from each other. Like earlier before the show started, well, I was saying how I was watching your Synereo hangouts, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like what we're doing with the Minds Panel Show, and you said, oh, you guys watched the Mind Panel Show, and you said, oh, we should do something like what they're doing, and that there's this feedback and this great kind of energy that we could all we learn a lot more when we kind of like cooperate with each other when we work together, and we have this feedback going back and forth.
That's right.
The real feature of the open source, like the old regime would be, you know, we are doing similar things, therefore we are competitors, and we must expunge one another from the face of the earth. It's like, I don't know. I mean, if we're open source, if we're really decentralized, then that's not just, you know, we're going to own everything and it's going to be decentralized our way. It's going to be a whole bunch of services coexisting and working together to make this large decentralized system with diverse services in addition to just one decentralized service.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. It's like our all this competition in the crypto community. I mean, we're only a few million users really using this. It's like my hand attacking my foot, you know. I think there's a lot of tribalism happening in all these different camps, and even in Bitcoin right now, you know, there's all these camps and variations and versions of Bitcoin, and it's gotten so political that really, I mean, I personally, like, I haven't been entertaining that at all. I pay attention to what's going on as far as the divide and the politics and stuff, but I don't contribute to it. I won't address it. I'm not going to write about it. I just don't really want to feed it that much energy because, you know, we're all kind of working, and I believe most of us are working towards the same goal, towards, you know, trying to decentralize more and more services.
I think for what that means, because I think we're all on the same page about the change from having a centralized service competing against another centralized service to the meaning of we're going to allow, you know, open source, everybody can get it for free, decentralizing, diversifying. You can't compete with us, you can only join us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then it's really pivoting on scaling. Problems that we got to think about that are all larger than can I make a little bit of money off of the value of Bitcoin going? Like,
yeah.
Is that really going to matter in 30 years?
Yeah. And I think the answer to it is not there's one answer, but it's like this, that it's going to need all of us to in a sense use kind of like blockchain thinking of all of us having our ideas and coming together and creating this like mesh network of solutions. I think that's the way it has to go.
That's a beautiful.
The beautiful thing about globalization in the information age is the connectedness. But now we have to interconnect deeper, and we have to interconnect back with the planet, and that's just what we have to do. I mean, you got to listen to the.
It's like what I said about the mistake that Ethereum made of positioning itself as a competitor to Bitcoin, right? It's really not a competitor to Bitcoin. The two are very complementary at the end of the day, where Bitcoin is acting as a currency and Ethereum is acting as this decentralized network facilitating decentralized programs to run, like a decentralized organization can run autonomously. And it could use it.
The new paradigm requires new philosophies to be sort of laid over this, because it is actually, you guys are all saying, oh, it's not competing, but it actually is. It's just on a different level than for money. It's not competing for money, because open source does away with the patent bottlenecks and the typical thing that happens with business. But what's happening is this little cycle that's pretty normal on technology. If you go back, you see early cell phone days traveling along, and then suddenly you'd go on Rome because you were in Company B's territory and they had all the towers up, and so this pre-cooperation. But ultimately, all the markets, whether they're open source, profit or not profit or whatever, they got to come together and make a protocol, a standard, where they can all communicate. And even fax machines, like at first, could only communicate with the same brand. It was,
I love the word communication, John. That's such a huge word.
So right now it really is a kind of a competition. It's just who's going to come up with the best system through collaborative efforts, and once it's up, then everyone adopts the same thing because it's open. It's not that's where the comparison just drops right off, because it's not this is mine, I got here first, I win. It's okay, everybody, this is the best way, this is the best system, let's all hook it up.
The point I'm making is Ethereum is enriched by the existence of other decentralized services that DAOs could theoretically use. Much like every decentralized service is enriched by other services existing that can use them. Like Slockit, for example, comes up with some system that does a distributed permission system that suddenly, DAOs can now toggle permissions for people on and off. And Bitcoin can now have permissions for wallets or for devices that contain wallets. And you can have, every time you add a new functionality into the mix, everybody else suddenly acquires this new functionality as long as they can interface with that system.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's like Rootstock integrating Ethereum into Bitcoin. It's all open source, and I think Ethereum it does what it does well, and it's just going to get better. And Bitcoin, the value that I see with Bitcoin is I see it predominantly as a store of value, kind of like the gold standard of crypto, or like a reserve standard of crypto, which cryptocurrencies need. It's got the most liquidity, it's got the most on-ramps to fiat, it's traded. Pretty much all altcoins are traded against it or paired against it. And I trade. I'm pretty coin agnostic myself. Aside from shitty pump and dump coins that people just try to pump out and dump on the markets type of thing, but I'm fairly coin agnostic. But as a trader, I've been predominantly locking my value in Bitcoin. With altcoins, you see them rally, you take your profits, right? Don't hold on to, I personally don't hold on to them for terribly long, because the majority of them haven't been a very good long-term store of value. And I think even with things like with Ethereum, as far as value goes, I'm not even sure what the inflation rate is, and I'm not even sure if Ether is supposed to be used as a currency so much as the fuel source for its apps, right? So personally myself, if I wanted to store value over the long haul, I'm not sure Ether would be the token or the mechanism that I would be able to do it. Plus, a lot of the ICOs that are being launched every day with DAO and various other ICOs, I see that as having a diluting effect on the supply in the market, because there's only so many traders, there's only so many users, and the more coins or tokens that enter into the market, the more that limited pool of liquidity that's in the markets, it gets diluted between other markets. And so, I'll experiment with an ICO here and there to see if there's a potential return. But I think in the big picture, the more people that jump into an ICO, and I understand the value proposition of being able to fund open source development through ICOs, and I think that's inherently valuable. But I also think we're in a bit of an ICO bubble as well right now, where everyone and their grandmother's launching an ICO.
Yeah, I felt the same way with hearing the launch of, I guess it's called the DAO, right? The AO.
Yeah. Yeah, now there's Pluto or something that's getting launched as well, and List got launched, and these things are raising. I mean, it's nuts, right? Because people made a lot of money off of Ether, so you could buy I don't know, 1 Bitcoin would get you 1,300 Ether, and then at the peak of that rally that we just had, you could probably get at least 33 Bitcoin's worth out of that, so it's quite a return on investment. So I think a lot of people have that profit motive in their mind. And I mean, as a trader myself, like I don't mind the profit motive, but I see it like I try to find a balance, right? Like I try to still stay to the roots, the philosophical roots of decentralization, and I almost see it as also an opportunity for people to take more control of their finances and to be able to work for themselves from home as well. Like we've created a whole new decentralized economy in a way where people could either learn to develop and we're all creating money, really. I mean, what was a privilege to bankers is now open to anyone, and obviously this is the Wild West, so this comes with more scams, as we've seen, but people they have to take certain security precautions and not chase hype. And obviously there's a technological aspect of it, but I do see it as quite liberating, even financially, where, like, for myself, for example, I live up on a mountain and kind of like in the Laurentians, and I'm there's no jobs around here really. I got to move here from the city, and I just basically work in crypto full time, and I really appreciate the freedom that's allowed me, versus just going out and working some job. And so there's tons of opportunity, obviously, with all these new startups, and we definitely haven't reached market saturation for a long shot. So there's a lot of growth potential in this industry in so many ways. And I really I looked at your AMP platform. I really like what you guys are doing with the social media. And I did notice, actually, it's funny, AMP came on my radar. I think it was like a few weeks ago. Went on a bull run.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of liquidity coming into it on Poloniacs. I was like, "What's this AMP?" So I looked it up, and in some ways, there's no better advertising than a nice bull run. But
at least for me personally, I'm more interested in actually building things that people will use and will work and make people's lives better and make money, rather than the trading side of things. But you're already living in the future. Like because you're doing the trading, you're looking at the lifestyle that I think could potentially be available to everybody of controlling your own finances and your own employment, even if you're living on a mountain.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that a little bit. I'd like to talk about the online businesses on a decentralized network. Because I have a business online. I invented something, and I sell it, and I take the PayPal payment, but I'm thinking about adding the Bitcoin payment. But if I could have it on a decentralized network with millions of people, maybe I'd like that as well.
nice.
leetraivs, you want to kind of pose a question or see if we start a discussion on something? Let's see. Let's open it up. leetraivs, do you have anything, a topic you want to pose for the panel to steer the conversation? Lee, is he there? Okay. Well, I guess I'll keep on the conversation going, and I guess it'll go more into the decentralization of the blockchain. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but anybody have some of its possibilities? Okay, so like we're talking about peace and stability of the blockchain to do more than just finance. Like I read this recent article about for it to be with the government, policing, all sorts of different applications that we could do with it. And what is kind of some of your favorite scenarios of it being implemented in other ways than just economically?
So the blockchain is a blank piece of paper that is agreed upon and can be processed decentralized by everyone in the network. And you can put anything you want on that blank piece of paper. So really the potential is totally whatever information can do, which is anything. One really simple, almost stupid application that could have profound impacts on democracy is a voting system.
Yes.
Like, I register my vote at this time for this candidate, and it's now in the blockchain, and no one can screw with it.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
potential miracle solution to voting. Again, you could do taxes decentralized as well. I'm not even joking. It would take some doing, and obviously the government it would have to be on a government-specific basis. So
well, you know, to kind of, I don't know if Ethereum could potentially do this too, because you know, you even if you had a scalable blockchain and Synereo solves that, the question is, well, how does Synereo itself make money? Well, and that's the question of how does the network stay up? You know, and the really is if you build a fully programmable stack, and anything can theoretically be built into it, then if we're going to keep this, then who's keeping up the network? Okay, different people. But you know, I'm going to turn off my computer at 6 o'clock. Okay, well there goes down. You know, it just gets really complicated. It's taxes and laws, and that's one where Evan and I were talking about if we could actually form a coalition of all these major blockchain initiative projects and get in front of Congress in the next 3 years, man, we could see some massive changes for the United States potentially.
Well, I tend to disagree with that because Congress is bought and paid for, so is the Senate in the U.S. They're all run by corporations. They're bought and paid for by corporations.
I understand that, but you know, the Visa's 40,000 transactions at peak hour is still threatened by Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin's not scaling to that power. As soon as you have a scalable blockchain, now you're in their court because you don't need you anymore. So you know, and that's where the conspiracy theories come out because it's like, you know, protect your programmers because this is straight up Fight Club at this point. Corporate espionage is coming, man.
I think that we definitely need to take a more active role in educating, especially policymakers, about decentralization. Because if we don't do that, then they're just going to knee-jerk and be like, well, people are dodging taxes and doing scammy shit. Like, well, the potential for good here and the potential to have a system that serves everybody equally, a system that is not corruptible, is way greater than these teeny little stupid shoddy scammers running around doing it.
I think the New York Bit license was a perfect example of what could happen because, you know, there's all this conversation with Benjamin Lowsky and all this cooperation, and people thought that things were moving forward in a very progressive way, and then he, you know, passed some of the most draconian regulations in the States. But aside from just that, I mean, also claiming that they have jurisdiction over any company who happens to service a New York resident,
They do.
you know, and and then essentially having like all these companies black out New York residents. You know, we have traders who are living in New York. Like I can't buy Ethereum. I can't trade altcoins. I can't. You know, they only have a couple of Bitcoin exchanges that they can access, and that's about it. And
it's amazing.
They're gonna make stupid laws. It's just going to happen.
It's amazing because that's exactly why Ethereum moved to Sweden. So
yeah, it's always been this, you know, since the cypherpunks in the 90s or whatnot. It's always been this struggle with technology because, you know, obviously technology is a double-edged sword. It's neutral. It's whatever you want to turn it into. You can turn it into like a NSA surveillance state, or you can turn it into, you know, decentralized, peer-to-peer, encrypted, privacy, all that kind of stuff. So, and I feel like there's always been this tug of war, this struggle between, and I'm not saying that everyone in the government obviously wants to enslave everyone, but I think that it's so, you know, like voluntary slavery is so permeated in our culture, you know, we've been so conditioned to it that it's a real paradigm shift, and I think technology does have a way of liberating us, and it has even social media in a lot of ways. As much as you can surveil everyone on social media, there's also surveillance. You know, there's things get leaked out. You know, you have whistleblowers that now have a platform to be able to share information. So it's you know, it goes both ways. I guess.
I was going to say
social media is a huge step forward from the one-to-many type communication that happened before, because everybody has a voice. But I think it's important for us to realize that even though it's better than what came before, we can do better still.
Yes. Yeah.
we were making a joke that the blockchain is a potentially terrible name because it's just like the word chain is there. It's just like if I get the wrong meme in your head, like, oh, we're in chains. Like, I don't know, dude. It's just
no, it's a sequence of things linked together.
no. It actually breaks the chains. It breaks you out of.
That's true, huh?
Yeah.
It's a sequence of things linked together. That's a chain. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and
We can rename it the break chain.
Break
The break
chain.
chain. Need some branding, yeah. Branding.
I like that. Break chain. Yeah.
So huge about the Panama Papers is it is a clear indictment of
Yeah.
the existing centralized system clearly isn't working as well as people think it is. But the problem is when something goes wrong, you never see it.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
like, I don't want to see what's wrong with it. Like people are evading taxes overseas. It's like, well, that money we never saw it. It's like the old school IT security chestnut of a secret encryption system, a security system that's a secret is not more secure than an open source system because if you have a problem, you will never know about it. Somebody's going to compromise them, and then they will never tell you. You will have a permanently compromised system. Whereas open source, everybody in the world is going to be checking you. And if somebody finds something, sure, some of them are evil and won't tell you, but some cryptanalysis professional in a university somewhere is going to tell you that we have a problem.
And it's so crazy because when you say crypto analysis professionals, I mean, there was talks about Greg brought it up, our CTO. He was saying, there's a very good possibility we might be hiring people from the NSA to assess our security. And that's so amazing, right? Because now you have people that, I mean, of course, there's people that understand cryptography, but these are people from the old system. They don't want to be there anymore. They either retired or they got out. It's just like, Edward Snowden. I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, I am done. I'm going to go find my tribe. This is not my tribe. This is not what I stand for. And more people that generate that and have the courage is the real thing. But, there are going to be more and more people out there like that.
Yeah, and with that new movie from Oliver Stone that's coming out in September, Snowden, have you seen the trailer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
You can watch it, but I haven't seen the trailer.
I'm hoping it's going to sink in for people because, I saw this funny interview from John Oliver, interviewing people on the streets in the States, and many people didn't even know who Snowden was,
Right.
and I think once they turn him into a legend by having them follow his footsteps through virtual reality in a movie, and walk in his shoes, then, every generation has their heroes, but the people in those generations rarely ever respect those heroes. So I would like to, for once, see one of these heroes actually getting respected. And I mean, the fact that he's still in asylum, really, in Russia of all places, and the fact that it's okay and for the government to take the stance they are against him. You know what their bargaining chip was on the table? Come back for trial. We promise we won't torture you.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. First of all, that's admitting to torture.
Well, to touch
Everyone knows about it. They like.
To touch point on your point there about how things are done, and you're really highlighting emotion, and we're so far behind as a decentralized society, but we're catching up because of the internet, right? We now know that the behaviorists and operant conditioning psychologists were hired by the Rand Corporation to understand dopamine and know how to leverage dopamine, because once they get you inside your head and they know how to manipulate your emotions, and that's why no one knows about Snowden, right? Because it's not sexy, or it's not going to be emotional. And once you have, as you said, virtual reality or something like that, boom, it's coming at you full speed. You can't ignore it because you're going to be hit with a flood of neurons. Like, wow.
And what he was reporting on was illegal, right?
Yeah,
for them to go off about him committing treason, well, actually, really. I mean, he reported something that was illegal, that the government was doing, or a branch of the government was engaged in illegal activity. So wouldn't that make him a patriot as opposed to treasonous, right?
Absolutely agreed, but that's not the coverage he got.
At least probably not in the States. I mean, in Canada, I know up here a lot more people see him in a favorable light. And
Yeah.
No, what's going on here is traditionally for centralized systems, you do have a trade-off between security and privacy. In order to effectively enforce security, the enforcer must have sufficient access in order to do their job. Right? This is the FBI's thinking of, we need to be able to find evidence on people's phones. Right? Old school thinking. And that is a violation of people's privacy. But traditionally, we have struck this bargain about we're going to give up some privacy in favor of the common good of having general security. We have warrants, for example. You have to go to a judge and prove that you have a good reason before you get to do things like that. For blockchain, we have a completely new paradigm where security and privacy are not actually fundamentally opposed to one another anymore. We have an incredibly secure system that is totally anonymous.
That's true. That's very true.
A long blockchain ledger of, how far do we take this back, people? You know what I mean? It's just so crazy in my mind, and I don't have an answer.
History is what you need to create a civilized world.
It's true.
If you don't have history, if you don't have a legitimate source that everyone can count on, then you have chaos, and anyone can come in and invent any reality and that's what we're currently living in. We're currently living in a situation where our reality is rooted in a story that we can't verify. So once we can create a world where we can verify our story, our history, our past, then we can move forward, and we can move forward in all kinds of ways with property ownership and or distribution of public resources or whatever. It's just we have no history. We can't trust. It goes back to trust. We can't trust our reality because it's not rooted in any kind of verifiable evidential situation.
Oh, that's so beautiful, man. I love what you just said. And and I love nature. I love the challenges that are ahead because now we have virtual reality. So you want to talk about how crazy it's gonna get? Add that virtual element. So now it's the information war, right? We are in the midst of possibly the largest war ever, and it's really for your consciousness. It's whoever unlocks that brainstem first and can get in.
It looks like Teklordz is going to say something.
Yeah, the biggest problem on Earth right now for humanity is the lust for domination and control, and this is our biggest problem. So there's a handful of individuals on this planet who control everything, and we need to get rid of these individuals. As long as we don't do that, we're not going to be able to progress very rapidly.
The individuals or even eliminating their positions will solve the problem. I think what people really want is freedom and autonomy, and getting power in society is a way to secure that autonomy. Right? A relatively small number of people want power for its own sake, right? But it seems like almost everybody needs at least a little bit of power in society in order to keep their position, right? In order to have the freedom to do things that they want to do, to be left alone if that's what they want, to have resources.
Society, that's the opposite of society. Society is the equalized power and balance, or equalized or balanced of power. That's what peace is. It's a balance of power. And the problem is that no one understands that they're their own person. It's like, not person, but you're your own sovereign unit, and that you don't need a government to make decisions for you. But everyone's running around using that system, and so the government is making decisions for everyone. It's about making the current system that we have obsolete, and that's the hope of the blockchain, I suppose. But the truth is that we don't really live in a society. We live in more of a cannibalistic, anarchical society, where everything is chaos, or the perceived definition of anarchy. It's everybody eats man versus whatever.
So
the idea here is to build a system that people like better.
Yep.
Like a decentralized economy that lets people control their own lives, their own privacy, meet their basic economic needs at least, and not have to worry about the stresses of.
Oh man, you just brought up another point.
Live. It's like, you don't really. There's sort of like an objective beyond. It's like it's a means to an end. That we can eliminate that means to and just go directly for the end.
That's exactly kind of touching on what Lee was saying, making it obsolete. And I like to say about we just bypass the system. We don't need it, which leads to disarming of them. So we give them the power because we give them what Lee was saying, that we look for them for the rules, or we give them our attention. But when we could actually build scalable or multi-scalable systems where we don't need them anymore, they get disarmed because we don't no longer pay attention to them. We no longer invest our time, our money, our effort into their system. We have our own system that is growing and more accessible to more people, and then they get disarmed, and what are they going to do?
Well, so I want to ask this question, you guys, and this is completely open-ended. You take it away right when I end it, but basic income, I feel, is like the last straw, because if people don't, if we say no, we don't want your money, we want our own money. You know what I mean? It's like, take your cash. I don't want it. You know what I mean? And that would be the ultimate fuck you, right? Because here's $2,000 stipend from the government. It's like, well, fuck you, dude. I don't want that. Like, get away from me.
That's what I love so much about cryptocurrencies and blockchains is that it's a quiet revolution, right? It's not a in-your-face revolution. It's a revolution of choice, right? Now we actually have alternatives, and that's why I'm so interested in the economy and the monetary system, because this is actually the source and the root of so many of our other problems, and it's essentially money makes the world go round, as they say with the economy. And if you change that economic system, you can get rid of things like third world debt. You can, even like you think about even all these the environmental issues you were talking about, right? These corporations, right? They're constantly having to pump out a profit to pay shareholders, right? But a lot of these corporations are also taking on a bunch of debt, and if the whole entire money supply is created as a result of debt, and it just creates this massive debt bubble where everyone's just paying interest off with creating more debt and so on and so forth, and you essentially create a lot of the problem. You can't really solve a lot of the environmental problems until we really dive into and restructure the way our economy works, and just having to pump out more units and pump out more profits, and so that's what I love so much about blockchains for one, and the decentralization of the services that blockchains have to offer, but even just the unit of currency and the monetary system, and being able to have alternative means. Because I was into this stuff way before Bitcoin came around, but when I heard about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I fell in love with it, because for the first time I actually saw a viable solution that was scalable on a global level, right? It was before people could talk about local currencies, or they could talk about gold or silver, but those aren't. You can't send those internationally for international payments. You can't keep track of things on this ledger system, right?
But I'd like to just do a quick comment here. I always said that free energy, or access to free energy, will be the key to our liberty, and it's gonna bring down all forms of authority on this planet. As soon as everybody has access to free energy on this planet, all forms of authority are gonna vanish, disappear.
It's going to be tough.
I think the fastest way from point A to point B is the concept of crowd selling, and combining that with the idea that we can create decentralized autonomous organization, basically a bot, a computer that runs the upper management of an organization, and the shareholders are the same people that are the benefactors, the people that want the product or the service. And as that goes on, as you get more and more people doing that, creating things, once you get a platform established that allows people to do that, to crowdfund a DOA where they're the benefactor and the shareholder, but there's no money, there's no profit. It's a different kind of situation. You start to, make corporations themselves obsolete. The concentration of focus really needs to be absolute avoidance of everything that we've been doing, and a completely new frame of thinking on how we're going to approach and solve our problems in the future.
You're talking about a completely new type of socioeconomic structure where there isn't this social stratification into a lower, middle, and upper class. Instead, you just have only the permissions that people have, and everybody in the properly designed system, at least the way that all of us want to do it, is everybody has the same rights to be a investor and also a consumer, and even a facilitator if it's a human task rather than an autonomous task.
And I find it's important to look at the roots of government. The social contract or compact between, like you were saying earlier, how it's that balance between security and freedom, right? Because out in the wild and natural law, we have absolute freedom, but when you get together in a society, obviously you need to ensure that people's rights are protected. But one of the problems that I'm seeing with government right now, I'd say, like, ideally, if we wanted a good government, perhaps just cut out the legislative part of the government entirely and just stick with some basic principles of not screwing each other over with the judicial branch. And because every time they pass some form of legislation, it just seems like they're trying to take away another piece of our freedom or self-choice, right? Just every single time I just see something coming out, like for example, there's a new legislation that's coming out in the States, and this is probably going to kill the whole ICO thing right off the bat, but they're legislating crowdfunding, right?
Yeah.
Where they've gone so far as to say that you can only raise like $1 million or whatever, and if you have like less than 100,000 a year, you make less than 100, you can invest like 3,000 tops in a crowdfund. And the question that boggles my mind is, where the hell do they get off telling people what we can invest and how much money you can raise?
Well, and see, that's amazing.
It's always been you have to be an accredited investor to do certain types of investments.
Yeah. Well, SEC licensed,
It goes. Yeah. But see, that's the beautiful thing about that, though, is that pressure. Oh, they're gonna lock us down. Really, they are, because some genius over here who's been working on this shit for 10 years in the backdrop, he's ready to hit. It's why it's the information war. You're gonna lock us in. Okay, we're gonna break out, and then you're gonna have to deal with this. And now we're more powerful, right? Because we get stronger. More. It's because conditioning. You just get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's really a fight between freedom and tyranny. Who's going to win out in the end?
The reason why they have those sorts of rules is that really young companies are generally very high-risk investments. And so you want people who have enough disposable income. And I'm not necessarily in agreement with this. An egalitarian system would probably be better, but this is just the way that the thinking has always been. Is you need people with a certain amount of wealth before you will allow them to do certain really high-risk investments. And it's sort of unfair that you just have this arbitrary rule that you have to have a certain amount of income or a certain amount of net worth before you're an accredited investor, but that's the way it's been for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I don't even know if Ethereum would have taken off if it weren't for the crowdfund.
So,
probably not.
So going back to what you were saying earlier about mass adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I think there's another thing that's overlooked that could possibly excel not only the value and the scarcity of Bitcoin, but the entire network into mass adoption by default, and that's crowdfunding. And if a system, because you get a contract, it's sort of like the sword and stone situation. It doesn't matter what happens, what legislation the government passes. You put these values that are from crowd funds, and you have micro investors, people putting in $1 even, to get a share. And
that's right.
And then all of a sudden you have $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin sitting in a cryptocurrency account, and all of a sudden you've got a scarcity in Bitcoin, and the value is starting raising. And, there's all kinds of different things that can happen that can create mass adoption, way beyond just people, that hang out at Facebook would, start using it. It's just about really the next level, the Internet 3.0. The next the next couple of years are going to be very interesting to see what happens once these smart contracts become online, and these values get locked into smart contracts that are going to fund a decentralized autonomous organization, but that organization is going to take a year or so. So money is going to be locked away in these accounts, that can't be touched, or they get siphoned out through an escrow, through a digital contract. And I mean, the sky's the limit what can happen. And as far as the obsolescence of all these things, I go back to the true focus really isn't anything that the government's doing. If you're focusing on any of that, you're not focusing on the right stuff, because it's really exciting what's going to be happening around the corner.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, the thing that concerns me the most about it is, because I would just love to be able to live my life, and I do, and engage in this technology, but we see these prime examples like Kim.com, for example,
right?
Who gave this technology where people could, file share and stuff like that, and just offered these services for free. And what they do, they go to his place in New Zealand or wherever it was. He hasn't even been to the States. Take his house, take his mansion, threaten to throw him in jail, seize all his assets. And so, as much as we can all ignore them and proceed with what we're doing, in some ways they can use force to get what they want, right? Which is usually the last resort, but they use it more often than not, right?
But you have to be aware of whatever you read in the news, because he had a background of hacking in Germany, and he was arrested in Germany. And not saying that, look, his technology is good, all that, but
the point of it is that most of this stuff will be decentralized. It won't be anyone. It'll just be like a million people that put $1 into an account.
Right.
And that account it has an escrow, and employs a group of people to create a decentralized autonomous organization. Once they create it, it's open source. They walk away. They take their payment for just doing the labor, and all of a sudden there's now this system that doesn't rely on one single person anywhere in the world, or it's just a node. It's a giant network.
And that's why, with respect to the United States, and I'm not someone who's going to defend the United States to the end, but you have to say that, look, not every single thing they do is bad. So in a sense, with what you just said, maybe it's pretty good to limit it. And to be honest, like, look, if I would have spent like $3,000 with bought Ethereum a year ago, oh my God, but I missed that window. You know what I mean? So. They limited only $3,000. Like, yeah, $3,000 can buy you a lot, though, in this world. You know what I mean? So it's like, it kind of protects consumers a little bit, but if it goes straight draconian, then yeah, I'm not even going to argue that. You know what I mean?
I'm not totally sure that the Crowdfund Act is applicable here, because it would require registering as a fundraising portal, and there's a lot of other things. The crowd sales are different. Then they're contemplating Kickstarter. That's what they're.
Oh, okay, they're way behind then. Never mind.
Literally, Kickstarter and crowdfunding is a new thing for these people, and it's like that's not a new thing.
Okay, like, I thought
it's not new, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It starts with Kickstarter, and then they look at ICOs and cryptocurrencies, and for me it's just a principle thing, right? It's a principle thing of like if I'm not harming anyone, right? If I'm not violating your rights and I'm not harming anyone, what business do they have interloping in my private affairs? That's where it really comes down to. And even if allow me the liberty to make my own stupid choices and mistakes, right? I mean,
yeah.
like, if I'm gonna,
but it gets fraudulent securities either.
Yeah.
So if somebody goes and creates a DAO with a completely fraudulent token that they're selling,
Yeah.
a piece of this business, it's like,
come on now.
yeah, and it happens.
It's gonna happen.
It definitely happens, but you know, I could say what good has the regulations done to quell the financial frauds happening in the legacy systems, right?
Yeah.
You know, you still get naked short selling, you still get front running with high frequency algorithms front running transactions in the markets.
And there's the housing bust, which is like
everybody felt that.
Yeah, exactly. There was a housing bust. I mean, fractional reserve banking. I mean, I don't know. I would love to hear someone try to explain to me how fractional reserve banking like really works, you know, like how it's not a Ponzi scheme, how it's not inherently based on a foundation of fraud, when its entire system was based on lying about how much gold you had in your vaults and issuing out more paper notes on loan, charging interest for issuing out more paper notes and gold that you actually have on reserve, and then legalizing that and turning that into an entire credit system. How the hell?
They can't even... why we live in an absolute insane asylum where it was, everyone basically exists a reality on something that is created out of thin air, out of the imagination of a bunch of guys.
Yeah. I've yet to hear any politician actually explain the economy to anyone. I've yet to hear any, and I would love to crowdsource this for anyone to see if they can find any evidence anywhere from any debates or anywhere where the politicians actually talk about the banking system and how they get their money.
There's a lot of politicians who are economists. There's probably some, but there's not. There should be more of them, you should think.
Yes. Okay, so guys, we're hitting up to 2 hours. So we'll start wrapping up some stuff. So, and Cryptohustle, you want to wrap up?
Sure. So my site's cryptohustle.com. I do have as a trader, I do have a focus on trading in the markets, and I see the crypto economy as a symbiosis between miners, developers, and traders, because you need healthy order books and liquidity for the miners to be able to cash in and out of, as well as the merchants to be able to cash in and out of. And oftentimes, you know, developers won't be able to necessarily make money or get paid if their ecosystem's not healthy and if there's not enough liquidity on the order books. We see a lot of projects, really good projects, innovative projects, die as a result of having illiquid markets and people just kind of abandoning the coins and projects. So I see it all as a symbiosis, and I do know that you know, trading is a zero-sum game, and you know, it can have like a bit of a predatory aspect to it. But you know, if you're not engaging in market manipulation and shitty fly-by-night pump and dumps and things like that, I think there can still be a healthy relationship there. So cryptohustle.com, I try to mix a balance between trading as well as philosophy of decentralization.
Leetraivs, do you want to say anything lastly to kind of...
Appreciate you guys coming on and letting us know about Synereo, giving us a more in-depth look at the platform that you guys are building over there. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, it was really exciting. Teklordz, do you want to add anything in here?
Yeah, well, my website is teklordz.net, so any of the people present in the panel right now, if you need help transitioning to Linux, we'll help you out for free. Just email me, info@teklordz.net, and I'll help you out.
Cool.
Nice.
Right on.
Nice. Okay.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I like this panel. And I think, too, moving forward, we'll stay in touch, and we'll keep you informed with each other, and I'll keep on listening in on your hangouts and researching you guys. But maybe in a couple of weeks or whatever, we'll start another show to revisit you guys and dig into more of these topics, because there's tons of stuff we could talk about, and I really appreciate you guys coming in.
I'd like to have the invite link, please, Synereo. Maybe send it by email to me, info@teklordz.net.
Info@teklordz.net. Okay, I'll get you info@teklordz.net. Got it.
Nice. Okay.
Cool, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay,
Yep.
we're going to sign off. This is the Minds Panel Show with Cryptohustle and Synereo. Thanks a lot. Bye.